Yo, 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 welcome back everybody to the Nah I'm Good Bro podcast. I'm excited to be back. Spring break is over and we are kicking off the second half of the podcast. Before we kind of get going, I really just want to thank y'all for the support. Y'all have really supported me. Y'all have made me feel good. The countless amount of emails, texts, comments on my social media posts just about my podcast, man, it really, really feels good. Those that have been following me know that I've had to change this podcast up multiple times. Like, the visual, like the graphics, everything around, I've had to change it. And I think I finally found something that, is easy to talk about, something that I truly relate to, especially because I love to talk. Like, I love to be in the moment and be with my people. And I think this has given me an opportunity, given me a platform to just discuss things that are on my heart 24/7. So I truly thank y'all. The support is unreal and we are pushing, we are going. And I'm really excited for y'all to see how I kind of, get things going and some of the guests that we have on. So thank y'all for staying with me. Spring break, yeah, it's over. It is done. So if y'all follow my family, y'all know we took our girls. I got two beautiful girls, Cameron and Carter. 7 and 2, soon to be 8 and 3. My girls are growing up, have birthdays next month and in June. But we took them to Kissimmee, Florida, along with some of our closest friends. And, it's something we like to do every single year for spring break, try to get down to Florida, get some beach time. But this year was a little bit different. It rained 2 of the days that we were gone last week. So we couldn't do Disney World. We couldn't do Universal Studios, but things worked out in our favor to where the resort that we stayed in had a pool out back, a heated pool. So we used that 24/7. And then there was also a water park down the street. So my girls had a lot of fun, a lot of opportunity just to kick back and just be kids, right? Like I was talking with my wife about this. It was crazy how literally this in the past week, my kids have yelled. They have done things that they normally wouldn't do if we were home, but it was crazy not getting on to them for certain things because we knew they were just kids just wanting to have a good time. So we kind of let loose a little bit. I mean, they snacked all day long. Like they didn't go to sleep till 12, 1 o'clock in the morning every single night. And they definitely paid for it the last night when we came back. We actually came back last Saturday, 7.5 hour drive, and they slept maybe 5 or 6 of those hours. So they definitely got their sleep back in, but they enjoyed every minute of it. So, again, I'm glad to be back. Spring break was fun, but getting back to what I love to do, and that's podcasting, is what I'm really excited about. So this week, y'all get me. You get me all to your lonesome. I'm going to start back next week with some of the guests that we have. I got some really special people lined up. I'm going to start a new segment here in a couple of weeks with some Black women and just women in general that have had experiences with Black men and kind of give a different perspective, which will bring some cool color to the episode. So I'm looking forward to doing that, but a lot of good stuff coming. Today, for us, I want to talk through just how to be in a healthy marriage, right? And like how to survive adversity. I am no stranger to adversity. I've dealt with it in my own marriage, but I think the beautiful thing about marriage and just, the trauma that I've dealt with is that I figured out a way to manage it and how to get through it. And I kind of wanted to talk through, some of the things that I've done along the way, and hopefully it helps another Black man or just another man in general, because we got to be here for each other and do things to help each other grow. I go back to when I was just a little boy. Like I've always, believe it or not, been in a position where I just wanted to please others. I didn't always have, the best role models growing up. I mean, my dad was there. He was great, did a lot of things for me. I'm always going to be appreciative for it. But, at times it felt as though he was absent. So I felt I had to, assume the role of a father figure to my 3 younger brothers. And it often, took away from me being a kid, right? But aside from that, always felt like I was in a position to where I had to please others or find ways to be accepted, right? And I was always naturally shy and didn't know how to do that, right? Like I didn't, friends would say otherwise, but I never thought I was the popular guy in school. And, I only felt that, things came my way because of sports. It wasn't because of anything that I did. So, if you knew me growing up, there were often times that I would, try to wear what everyone else is wearing, like try to be that trendy person, to try to be friends with whoever everyone else is friends with. But inside, like, I was struggling with a lot of stuff because I just wanted to be accepted, and I was looking in the wrong places and doing the wrong things to get accepted, right? And I think the problem with that is that it followed me all the way through my middle school years. It followed me through my high school years, and even followed me up until college, right? And instead of trying to fix it and figure out the root of that problem, like, I decided to, tend to the things that really made me who I was, and that was basketball. So I put everything that I had into basketball, and with that, I think came the acceptance, because I feel like I was a decent athlete, right? Like, I'm no, 5-star athlete, but in my time, in my community, I was a really good player, and I had a good head on my shoulders. And with that, again, came the acceptance of other people. So I leaned on that. But at some point, I couldn't do that anymore, and I just didn't know exactly how to do that. And it was really apparent when I met my wife. So you all know Kaylin. I met her at Emmanuel. And basketball, it is what it is, right? Like, it was what it was. But when I found a real relationship, right? No knock on anyone else that I've, encountered or been with in my past. But when I felt like I found, a real relationship and was ready to settle down, like, I had some stuff in my closet that I was afraid to let out, because I didn't know how Kay would accept it, or, how she would go about it, right? And it wasn't until, I started reading books and really trying to understand, like, what it means to be married and the best way to go about it, that I really uncovered a lot of stuff, and it made my marriage what it was. But I will say this, like, it wasn't, Kayla and I, like, we weren't great every single day of our lives. Like, we've been together 10 years, been married 9. And I say the first year, maybe first 2 years, like, we're doing really, really well. Like, things were going great. And then we went through a rough patch, like year 3 through maybe year 5, where we were constantly at each other's necks, like, always arguing about the dumbest things, like the craziest things, y'all, literally the craziest things we would argue about. And then obviously you bring a kid into the mix. We brought Cameron into the mix, and some of those arguments, they became worse. And the issue with some of those arguments was we now have a child looking at us get at each other's necks and be on each other's throats, and was scared, right? But we both got to a point to where we had to sit down with each other and see if the relationship, like the love, if everything was solid enough to where we wanted to fix it and wanted to make things work. And obviously, you fast forward to year 10 of being together, 9 years of being married, we figured it out, and, we're on the same page. Like, that's my partner, that's my best friend, like, we're on the same page. But I credit all of this to, the amount of prayer time that we had, the amount of time that we spent, in our Bible, reading different marriage books, and I highly recommend it. Obviously, we didn't go the therapy route, but we had, I guess, people in our corner that really put us in the right spot. But we read a lot of books, and we read those books together, and we implemented a lot of the the tasks that were in those books to help further our marriage, and we were surprised at what it did for us, right? But there was one particular book that I read, and it was called No Real Marriage, and it really caught my eye, and it was crazy. Kay and I, we were getting ready to get on a cruise to go to the Bahamas a few years ago. And obviously we got to the airport extremely early because we were going to board the ship in Miami. And we got to the airport extremely early. So we were sitting around just not doing anything, and happened to see a gift shop. We were going in there to get the neck pillows and came across these books. And it was like No Real Marriage. So I got one, and then Kay was like, well, we can't read it right next to each other, so I'll get one too. So we bought the same book, and we literally sat in the airport and reread parts of that book and finished it once we came back home. And I tell you, from that moment forward, it really changed our lives on how we see each other and how we're able to communicate those things, right? So to kind of kick it off, a lot of what we talked about were slow phase. Slow phase. So when you think about slow phase, is when you hear people say stuff like, you just swept it under the rug, right? Like, that's what slow phase are, or what they can attribute to. And the way I see it, it's never the big issues. It's never, never, never the big issues that hurt a marriage. It's always the little things that continue to simmer, that stuff that goes unnoticed, the stuff that goes unattended, goes untouched. That's the stuff I feel that really drives you away from each other and separates the marriage. And I think that's where Kay and I were headed, but we really clung to each other and we wanted to make things work. Right. I think no marriage truly crumbles in a day. It happens over time when one person's feelings or one decision really leads to another person's feeling a certain type of way, and then you don't address it. And that's when you continue to, like I said, waver away from each other and really fall into this weird, dark place that you don't want to be in. So there were a couple things that I saw in this book that I really appreciated, and some of it stuck to me because I do some of these things. One of the slow phase was unrealistic expectations, right? So most people, most couples, most marriages, they have expectations of each other that I think are unknown, and then most times they're unspoken, right? And it means that, when those things are unknown and when they're unspoken, that means that those expectations obviously aren't met, and sometimes they're unrealistic, right? Like you have to have the courage and you have to have that grace and have the acceptance of who you're with, because that's likely going to be the tool that you need to pull out of your toolbox when it comes to really improving your marriage in the areas of expectations, right? So when people say stuff like, your spouse is responsible for your happiness, right? Or the person you married will never change. All of your time should be spent together, or, it's either my way or the highway. Like these type of things are what really drives you away from your marriage. Right. And I think this is where I've been able to grow a little bit, because it's no surprise. Like Kay and I are two totally different people. I'm more of the quiet, shy person, and she was more the outgoing, outspoken person. And people thought, I kid you not, people thought that we just weren't the best fit for each other. But we were able to understand that, or I'm not going to say we were, I looked at it and said, I'm not here to change who Kay is. I just want to love her for who she is. And I think she said the same thing for me. Like she didn't try to change me. I didn't try to change her. And I think that's where our connection came. And we understood that, you can have expectations about what you want in your relationship, but it shouldn't pull your marriage apart. It absolutely should not pull your marriage apart. And it didn't pull my marriage apart. I think your expectations should be centered around how you respect each other, right? Like sharing responsibilities around the house. My wife absolutely loves when we say, I love you. So we say, I love you every single time we get off the phone. I mean, literally every single time. We talk 8-10 times a day. We say, I love you after every time we get off the phone. Or, trusting each other or honoring each other's dreams. Like those are the expectations that you should set for your relationship. My wife, she's in a bike club. She has this her bougie boutique, her clothing line. Like if we didn't set expectations, or if I didn't set expectations about what I wanted, when she went on those different business ventures, like it would have derailed our marriage. Like if I didn't tell her how I truly felt about her being in a bike club, or how I truly felt about her, really running her business, like she wouldn't have saw the frustrations from me for, her being pulled away from me for whatever she was doing with her business. So I had to be honest about how I felt. Right. Another one that's out there is minimizing. That's another slow fade. And there are two versions that I read in this book of how you can minimize your relationship. There's internal minimizing. I can't even talk. And external minimizing. Internal, if you're people like me, is where this hurt me, is where you minimize your own feelings and your concerns and you don't speak on it. And then external are those who minimize the feelings and concerns of the other person that you're with or your spouse. But both of these can really pull you away from your marriage yet again. And I struggled with this one really, really bad. I was an internal minimizer and it's simple. Like if Kaylin would ask me what was wrong with you, like most people, like most men, I would always say nothing. I'm okay. Nothing's wrong. And that was not healthy. It wasn't good, because in my mind, I knew something was wrong, but I was so afraid of what the outcome would be by talking to Kay that I often kept my mouth shut and I never spoke on it. And it wasn't until I actually spoke up about it that things actually started to change, right? And then the external part of it is when, your spouse is upset. So I'll look at me in my situation. So if I saw that Kay was upset, my response was always, "Oh, it's not a big deal. Like, you making it more than what it really is." Right. And that's something that I did. And I realized that it really hurt my marriage. Like, just because I didn't see it as an issue, it doesn't mean that it wasn't an issue. And I needed to respect how Kaylin felt. And I didn't do it in all those moments coming up in our marriage. So I was a really bad, I guess, when you look at this example, like, I show how it didn't work because though Kay did some things too, like, I took ownership in the fact that I need to speak up when something is really bothering me, but then at the same time, I can't tell you how you're supposed to feel because we're two totally different people. We came from two totally different backgrounds and had different experiences growing up. So what may seem small to me is obviously big for her, and it's my job to step up and be a man and say, how can I help? What can I do to fix it? Right. So that was a big one that I had to really focus on, and it really changed my life once I was able to. Yeah, I guess it's like this, like, someone will tell you all the time, like, you can't talk to your wife like that. You can't say this and that. But it wasn't until I read it in a book or heard it from someone else that it actually clicked. Right. And it's so cliche, but for whatever reason, it happens every single time when you hear it from somebody else or you see it somewhere. Like, for whatever reason, that light bulb goes off and you're in a better spot. Another one is not acceptance. So the truth is, I mean, we're all, I guess you can say, incompatible at some point in your relationship. And the beautiful thing about marriage is that it brings out those differences and it helps you to narrow in on what the actual issue is, right? Like, instead of being frustrated with, each other's personalities or your temperaments, like, we have to learn to be embraced by those differences. Like, I have to learn to be embraced by the fact that my wife loves to dance. Like, she will speak up when I ordered fries and I got mashed potatoes, right? Like, that's the stuff that I have to be okay with, that she's going to speak her mind. And then on the same side, Kaylin has to be okay with the fact that sometimes, like, I preserve my energy. Like, there are moments where Kay thinks that I should have spoken up on something, but because I don't think it's worth my time and energy, there were times where I often pulled back and, just let it be what it was, right? So that's another one that we really had to focus on, and, it was perfect for us. Right. Another one is disagreement. So this one is an obvious one, right? We all going to see things differently than the way our spouse, your significant other, will see things. And we're all going to have different perspectives. We're all going to have different opinions. But I think the big thing here is how you're going to be able to identify what happens inside of you, like how you feel if your partner or your spouse disagrees with you. Right. Like, I used to always feel that. And again, I'm comfortable talking about myself because I know I'm not perfect. I know there are things that I need to work on to be a better father, to be a better husband. And I think because I focus on that every single day, in a sense, comfortable with where I'm at. Right. But there were times where, Kay and I would disagree about, how we're going to spend money, like how many kids we're going to have. Truthfully, we disagreed about how often we're going to be intimate or have sex with each other, like when we're going to have our me time, who's going to wash the dishes, like who's going to clean the toilet, like all these different things we always disagreed about. And I mean, y'all be surprised, Kay and I, we put together a contract because we used to always be at each other's necks about who we're going to do certain chores around the house. For example, like, I absolutely hate cleaning the bathroom. It's one space that I spend a lot of time in, but I absolutely hate cleaning it. And on the flip side, Kay hates taking out the trash. Like, it's something about taking out the trash and washing dishes that she just doesn't do. So once we read this book and started talking, we just put together a little contract. Sounds crazy, but we were like, every time the dishes need to be done, it's understood that I'm going to wash the dishes. So it doesn't matter, if I didn't put any dishes in there, like whatever it is, like Kay's not going to argue with me, and I'm not going to argue with Kay because I know that I said on this contract that I was going to wash dishes. The same thing for cleaning the bathroom. And that's just something that worked for us, right? A couple more. There was another one. There's defensive responses. I think this is one of the biggest issues when it comes to having honest conversations, is that defensive response. And every man, I feel, struggles with this. Every woman struggles with this, all because of how you receive something that somebody else says. It truly shuts down communication, and it forces us to have our backs against the wall and feel like someone is coming at us. And, there have been times where I don't know, let's just say Kay forgot to pay a bill, or I may have forgot to get something from the grocery store. Like, or we may get upset that, like I may get upset that Kay may have told one of her friends about our arguments, or I may have went to one of my boys and said something about, an argument that we had. Like, our brain is something about our brain. Like, we hear that stuff or we see those things and we're instantly triggered and we try to protect ourselves, right? Like, if I see that Kay forgot to pay a bill, like the first thing that I would say is, why did you forget to do that? Right? Or if I forgot to pick up milk from the grocery store, Kay would come at me and say, why in the world did you forget to do it? And I don't know if it's something about that why word or not, but instantly I felt triggered that Kay was coming at me. In the same way, when I talked to Kay about, oh, you should have paid this bill, why didn't you do it? Like, she can easily feel triggered. And that was another area for us to take a step back and say, I understand what you're saying. I understand your message. I know you mean no harm by it, but the way I received it was X, Y, and Z. And being able to simply just talk about it and just say how we truly felt about it, that helped us to, I guess you could say, self-soothe and really de-escalate the situation and see that Kaylin wasn't attacking me or I wasn't attacking Kaylin. We just had to find a better way to address the issue at hand, right? And I think the last one that I learned in this book was avoiding emotion. That's one of the biggest slow phase that I used to deal with a lot because I was extremely guarded. Kay was extremely guarded. I mentioned to y'all earlier, I always focus on, or I always wanted to be accepted. And Kay was from the mindset of, I don't want to give too much because I don't want this to be another failed relationship. And that can create, a sense of disconnection or emotional distance. And again, like I said, this entire episode is that we have to continue to learn to be open and honest and vulnerable with each other. And that's something that we learn to do over time. We've learned to include our kids in some of the, disagreements that we've had. And we like to show our kids that, yes, mommy and daddy disagreed on something, but, we both came together to fix that issue and figure out the best way to go about it. So, I don't know. It was just something about reading that book and really understanding how we can, communicate with each other and how we can be open with each other that really changed things. Now, I'll say this. I won't say that, it's completely changed everything to where we're just, happy-go-lucky and we're just in a good mood every single day. Like, yeah, absolutely. We still have our days where we just don't want to be bothered or things have frustrated us. But what separates how we deal with it now versus before is that now we know how to communicate that, right? Like, if I got upset 7 years ago, like, I would often keep that to myself. Like I said, minimize, keep it to myself and say, nope, I'm good. But then spend the rest of my day in a sour mood or upset. Whereas now, if I get upset and Kaylin will ask me what's wrong, I will tell her what's wrong. It doesn't mean that it's going to solve the problem or that I'm not going to be upset, but now she's aware of why I'm upset, which means that she's either going to give me the space that I need to get over it, or she's going to console me and vice versa. Like, that thing goes both ways, but now we're able to communicate those issues and know exactly what's going on, right? Another big thing that we've learned is how to really just take off our marriage mask, right? And again, we're talking about, just how to be better in your marriage and some of the things that I've done, right? Like, I hear a lot of people, and again, I appreciate the credit. People think, I'm just the best husband that ever exists. And a lot of people think my wife is just the model wife. And though we believe that, we're thankful for those comments and the words that y'all give us. Like, we know that it took a lot for us to get to where we were. And it's because we read this book and we just leaned on other people that we wanted to be like in terms of marriage. And that really molded what we wanted to be, right? I think a lot of people wear masks in marriage because they're scared of just truly just being themselves, right? Like, I truly think people are afraid of, what could happen if, my wife sees my weak spot, or if I identify a weakness in my wife, like, how would she react to it? But we have to find a way to get out of that so we don't worry about being judged and we won't hold back and seem like we have it all together, because I struggled with that. I felt like I always needed to have it all together because it goes back to when my dad wasn't here, like when he was off doing his thing. And this is not about him at all. Like, I appreciate what he's done for me. But when he went out to do his own thing, I felt like I didn't have time to, break down or show that I was vulnerable. Like I had to have it all together. And again, it followed me all through my school years, even into my marriage. But I'm breaking that generational curse, and I've been doing a great job and trying my best to, do what I need to do for my family. And it's because I learned how to take the mask off in my marriage. Um, there are a lot of masks, right? So there's a comedian mask, there's a caregiver mask, a know-it-all pleaser, passive victim, and overachiever, right? The comedian mask is when you joke about everything in your marriage and you try to keep things keep things light and try not to let things get so serious. I don't think I've ever dealt with it. I know people that deal with it every time a bad situation comes up, or a stressful situation, or a situation that may cause conflict. Like they turn it into a joke and they try to, distract you from the real issue at hand, right? A caregiver mask is when you try to seek that value by being a helper and staying busy to try to avoid, having some of those deep conversations, right? Like, you see it on TikTok, you see it all the time. Like if Kaylin would tell me, we need to talk when you get home, like, oh, now all of a sudden I got to go run to Home Depot. I got to go do this. I got to go do that. I try to do things to, prevent having to have that conversation, is where that caregiver mask comes in. The one issue that I screwed up on, if I'm going to be honest, is having that know-it-all mess. I felt that I couldn't allow for differences. Like I believe that there were times where, because I was more knowledgeable in something, that there was no way that this could be wrong, or you can't tell me your opinion. Like it kept my wife from being open with me about change and how we were supposed to do things, and it put that pressure on top of our relationship. And I had to pull it back and realize that, it's not always about me. Like I'm not perfect. Like I won't know all the answers. It doesn't matter how much school I've done and, the people I've talked to. Like I'm not a know-it-all, right? Another one is a pleaser mask. This mask is where people try to keep that peace and always try to please someone for the sake of not having to deal with all of the conflict that comes in a relationship. Another one is passive victim. This one is something that I don't necessarily deal with, but these are the people that don't take responsibility for their actions. These are the people that always say it was someone else, or any issues that you deal with in your own life, it was caused by somebody else, right? And that is never going to be healthy in a relationship. And the last one is just the overachiever mask. Like if I work hard, you'll approve more of me. That's the way I view it. Like if I'm doing everything around the house, like how could you be upset with me for everything that I'm doing, right? Like I used to wear this mask a lot. Like I'll put it this way. So Kay is someone that needs, that attention. Like she needs me to, touch her, hold her, let her know that I love her. And there was a spell in our marriage where I wasn't doing those things. So when she came to me and said, like, you're not doing the things that I need from you, like I would always push back and say, well, I just washed the dishes, or I just did this, I just did that. And I would try to use that overachiever mask to show that I am a good husband because I'm doing X, Y, and Z. But in the moment, that's not what she needed from me. And I think that's something that, again, I've grown from, and it's really made for a strong and healthy marriage. So I don't know. I just wanted to take time and kind of walk through some of the things that I learned in this book that I read. And hopefully you all, the men that are listening to this, and maybe some of the women, can take something away from this and realize that, we don't always have to have it all together. We shouldn't have it all together. But at the same time, like we all need people in our corner. We need other happy marriages. We need other strong role models in our life to show us that there's a better way of living, that you don't always have to, talk down on your spouse or, do whatever it is, that there is a happy medium and a place that you can get to. So hopefully you got something from it. I was glad to kind of sit back for the past 30 minutes or so and kind of walk through it. Moving forward to next week, I'm really going to spice it up. Again, I got some real local heroes just in the music business, photography business. I got some people that have come from, small areas that have really made a name for themselves. And I'm excited to have them come on and tell their story and just kind of walk through some things. So y'all make sure to stay tuned. Thank y'all for listening to this podcast, this episode. Again, the support has been unreal, and I'll see y'all next week. Peace.